Hello and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite sections of the criminal code that unfortunately they got rid of. And that is section 337, or the former section 337. This was repealed by the Trudeau government as part of their repeal of a bunch of laws that included things like fraudulently practicing witchcraft. But this one I don't think is in the same category as the witchcraft category. The witchcraft thing maybe, should have gone away because no one was prosecuting it because why? But this one, I feel like the problem isn't that it's a bad bit of law, it's that they weren't enforcing it. So let's have a look at this one. So this one says, public servant refusing to deliver property. Everyone who, being or having been employed in the service of Her Majesty and Right of Canada or a province, or in the service of a municipality, and entrusted by virtue of that employment with the receipt, custody, management, or control of anything, refuses or fails to deliver it to a person who is authorized to demand it, and does demand it, is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 14 years. So this is was a straight indictable offense, maximum penalty of 14 years, but no minimum penalty. Fairly serious charge. When we're thinking about what this was intended to deal with, what they were sort of thinking of when they set this section up, my suspicion is that this was intended for something like, because of your role working for the government, you get a company car, which would be a government car. And so, this person is issued a car and they're driving around and then they get fired. And they say, hey, listen, you've been fired, but bring the car back. And the person goes, nah, I'm going to keep it. You say, well, you can't do that. It's not your car. Nah, I'm just not bringing it back in. I'm going to keep this car. So they'd be able to proceed under this section. They'd also be able to proceed under other sections, but this section made it a particularly bad offense. It's kind of unusual because this is one of the very few sections that's actually aimed at the government and its employees. But when we think about sort of what they were originally planning with this, it looks like it was aimed for government employees who are acting badly against the government, is what I suspect that they were looking at. However, this law is actually written in fairly broad terms, or it was written in fairly broad terms. And so the situation that seemed to apply, that came up or has come up a number of times that I've seen, is where, for instance, somebody gets charged with an offense, they've seized their firearms, they get acquitted at trial, and they get a court order that says all firearms are to be returned to this person. And so they go to the police station and they say, I've got a court order, give me my firearms back. And they have a valid firearms license at this point. They've got all of that. But the police sometimes say, nah, we're not going to do that. We're going to keep hold of these guns. To my mind, this is a situation where you've got somebody who's employed in the service of Her Majesty and Right of Canada or a province, that being the police. They are entrusted by virtue of that employment with receipt, custody, management, or control of it, because, of course, the people running the evidence lockup are doing so because of that employment. And they're refusing to deliver it to a person who's authorized to demand it and who is demanding it because they've got a court order that says, gimme. The problem with that, of course, is that who's going to enforce that? The police officer who's saying, I'm not going to give you your guns back, notwithstanding that you have a court order and that you're legally entitled to possess them, of course, isn't going to turn around and then say, I'm placing me under arrest for the offense of refusing to deliver property. And of course, you wouldn't want to try to effect a citizen's arrest against a police officer because I can tell you how that's going to go, which is badly, so very badly. Do not try this. You might, in theory, be, there's an argument where you'd be legally entitled to try. Don't do it. You will get shot or, injured, tased, pepper sprayed, whatever. There's a variety of things that they might do to you, and they can just pick off the menu, and they probably will. So don't try to arrest a police officer. It's just not a great plan. And people have tried to bring, private prosecutions for this, but they don't go anywhere because the government can, of course, decide to squash a private prosecution and they're likely to do so in a situation like this. So this is a section that in theory should have provided protection for people in those kinds of circumstances. And in practice, because of just how essentially the problems with actually implementing it and enforcing it, it didn't provide as much protection as it could have. However, I like this being on the books because even if you can't actually, go and, arrest an officer or the like for doing it, it provides an argument for, not just are they being jerks, but they're doing something really wrong. Here's this section that, shows what they're doing is wrong. So having repealed that, that's kind of lost now. So I miss this section. I wish it was still in our law, but it was one of the ones that was sort of scratched out there. It would be nice to see something imposed or put in that provides better protections, but for right now, that section's just gone. And unfortunately, I think this one is one that's going to be a loss. I won't miss fraudulently, practicing witchcraft, but this one I miss. Philosophically, I kind of like the idea of laws that are intended to punish government officials if they refuse to do things that they're required to do for the public. In practice, it's unclear as to how much those will actually ever help, simply because how do you get the government to go after the government? But I do miss having this at least on the books. I'm sad that it's gone. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please like, share, and subscribe if you have. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters, D. Mo, People of Canada, Sir Daniel Wicks of Alberta, Canada's National Firearms Association, Toronto Airsoft, and Rail, as well as at the $20 level, Cameron Johnson, Kevin Fleet, and Dale Nesbitt, and at the $10 level, Ma Buddy Keith, Process Eng, Stephen Larson, General Counsel of the CCFR, John Robinson, TR, Roy Haddock, Freckles Dack, Jean-Alexandre Tessier, Sir Goat, Sights and Arms Limited, Jabba Hollow, Peter H., Craig Kwan, Akin Coxall, North Central Process Service, Toys Are for Boys, Ian Vaughn, Milan Vrekic, Terrence Griffiths, Doug Thompson, Mark D., Brad Crooker, Jason Harrington, Lee Kiso, Mark Stout, Michelle Stotzel, Scott Sweetman, Mike Rhodes, DF, Stacey Cartmel, Tactical Advantage TV Canada, Ian S., Dave Leslie, Juan, Donald Duncan, Stephen Conquest, Darren Duell, Sean Crane, Pete H., Ian Hutchinson, Rory, Travis, BC Bushcraft Leather, John Singarty, Misa Komarevich, All Systems Go, David Moga, Ian Hejdanek, Hello from Venezuela, Taylor Delnea, Rod Guzman, Matthew Nesbitt, Conway Yuri, James Cox, Zip Ties and Bias Plies, Daniel Kang, Jean-Guy Toussaint, Richard, Brock Watts, Frog Clan Copper, Annika Bain, Tim McGill, Jordan Delaney, Rob Butts, Chris Joseph, and thank you once again. There's a link to my Patreon below. Yeah, I'm kind of sad about this one going, but not much I can do. I don't see a future government bringing it back because the government tends to be fairly reluctant to put in laws sort of against itself. But anyway, thank you for watching. I hope this has armed you with knowledge, and see you next time.